Normally I feel bad wasting my day going through the archive, but today was different. I think it's mostly because I spent the day doing it with my friend. And it got me feeling driven to make something with it. They don't really get why I spend so much time looking through it. Usually I just say they're really funny and kind of interesting to watch. Or that I've never seen videos produced like that before. I think the drive is coming from wanting to make something in that style, hoping it'll reach them. Maybe it'll be easier to get if it's coming from someone they know. And if it doesn't, at the very least I get to have fun making something in the style I like. Why do I like these videos? I guess it's because at some point, everything started looking too nice and clean. Obviously cameras and editing software got better at the same time people were getting better at using them. And looking at this time period, from around 2005 and 2020, you can see the progression happening really clearly. Unfortunately, you can see a type of production being lost as the years went by. The beginning part of this era was defined by an unpolished look that just kind of disappeared. Even the most highly produced videos online were really jank. The directors had visions and ideas they wanted to convey, but not the skill or the equipment to make something professional looking. They did what they could with what was available to them, which led to a certain look. It's the look that kind of vanished when HD cameras became affordable, and when editing software became more user-friendly. Surprisingly, a lot of the defining videos of this era were about video games. I guess there were a ton of people who wanted to share their opinions on games they were playing or grew up with. You can play a lot of the games they're talking about. You can find them on the archive pretty easily. And I'm pretty sure you can play some of the surviving copies of those games at the museums. It's strange, some of the most well-preserved games were from the beginning of the art form. Turns out cartridges last longer than discs. What's kind of funny is a lot of reviewers had this bit about how strong the cartridges are. I know they meant physically, like it's harder to break a cartridge than a disc, but it turns out they're also more resilient to degradation over the millennia. At a certain point, the games being reviewed became harder to find. Most of these would have been contemporary to the early reviewers. This was a period when disc was the primary storage medium. It makes sense why CDs had more capabilities than cartridges and they were cheaper to make. The downside was that CDs don't last as long. Yeah, they'll last a lifetime of the people who buy it, and maybe even down to their grandchildren, but not much longer than that. It sucks too, a lot of these games were massively influential. Now they only exist in theory, their remains living in reviews and long plays. These games are referred to as the ghost games. This only got worse in the era of digital distribution. People didn't have to buy games physically anymore, which was a godsend for indie devs. But when the servers go down, there's no trace of those games anymore. Some lucky games were printed and preserved, but that's not the case for most of them. The games without this luxury only survive because of organizations and individuals dedicated to archiving them. But even then, there are some games that just fell through the cracks. One of my favorite games of this time period is the Ghost game. The game is Bloodborne. I know it's cliche for people to say, but there's a reason for it. It looks really cool, aesthetically and mechanically, and it's also of historical significance. Which is probably why there's so much information preserved on it. The fact that a game like that can have such an impact on everything, while not being well preserved, is both fascinating and tragic. Especially when you consider the amount of art about it and influenced by it that is well preserved. Luckily, the amount of analysis that exists on the game, in video, text, and even podcasts, paints a pretty clear picture of what it was. So clear that some fans decided to recreate it. I've obviously sunk my hours into it, and I can only hope this comes close to what it was like for the ancients to play it. An original CD was found not too long ago. Obviously everyone was excited for the news, but it came with a lot of sadness. On one hand, having a physical remnant of that long gone past and to know it really did exist is something to celebrate. On the other hand, we can't actually access the software. All of that decayed long ago. I think of it as a strange paradox. It's because we end up proving software existed while not having the software. It's some digital dating stuff I don't really understand, but what I do understand is we get a cool piece of plastic with a cool design on it that proves something. My favorite thing to come out of this game isn't actually the fan game. It's this one video by this guy who called the game genius for an hour or so. I can't really recall the exact points in the video, but I do remember what it looks like and what it feels like. The person behind the footage had an infectious passion and love for the game that I still feel when I think about it. It wasn't written as something profound or anything, nor was it edited to be someone's opus. It's just a guy gushing about something he loves, showing relevant footage, having some fun with the editing, and explaining everything the game did right in the context of the series and as a standalone piece. The title of the video is something I still think is really funny. Bloodborne is genius and here's why. There's a lot of videos from this time period titled similarly. It became kind of a cliche that I find really endearing. This person, H-Bomber guy, then went to make more videos that were cultural moments of the time. It's a channel that's kind of wonderful to go through. They start with such simple visuals, and eventually the production quality got better and better. Obviously part of it is getting a bigger budget, but you can see their improvement as a director and writer as well, which I think plays the larger part in it. I'm not sure how popular this video was in its time. I only really know about this because someone archived all of this person's stuff, and I stumbled upon it while looking for anything Bloodborne related. I know a lot of early video essays were lost, but the ones that survived, I really like them. They feel cozy. They make me feel like I'm hearing a friend talk to me about something they like. I do often wonder what they would think about our current recreation of Bloodborne. Would they like it? Would it feel strange? Is it faithful? What would they think about the fact that the game is lost now? What other game would they be devastated to hear becoming lost? Something funny, he mentions Dark Souls 2 a few times, and we have access to that game. Another funny thing is that there's this game called Nightmare Cart. It was found a few years ago, and people love it. That game was initially called Bloodborne Cart, and we found the demo for that version too. Part of me will always hold out hope that this game will be found, even if it won't happen realistically. I think that's okay. I'm still happy with what we do have. I can see how important this game was, and how important it continues to be. Maybe if the game is found, I'll play it and be disappointed. I don't think the idea I have of this game in my head will ever really match the reality of it. But even then, even if it does suck, that won't really change the impact it had on me and everyone else. This game was an instant classic for a reason, and even though I've never played it, and probably never will, it will always be one of my favorite games.